Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome to a special discussion with the SSS Defence Management. Shortly, SSS Defence Management team, Stumpp Schuele Somappa Defence is an Indian company that deals in the military small arms sector. It is a subsidiary of the parent company, namely Stumpp Schuele Somappa Springs. The SSS Defence focus area is a small arms, ammunition, and accessories. The company aims to target the foreign markets located in Asia, apart from those in India too. It became the first private Indian firm to have developed sniper rifles when its Viper and Saber rifles were released. In October 2021, the firm received an order to upgrade some of the Indian Army's AK-47 rifles to special operations standards. This was the first time a private Indian company received a firearms order. Today's my guests are Mr. Satish, Machani, Managing Director of the parent company, and Mr. Vivek Krishnan, Chief Executive Officer of the SSS Defence. Gentlemen, welcome to the ET Government Special Talk. So my first question to Mr. Satish Machani. Sir, India is witnessing a few interesting trends. One side, Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India, the Ukraine-Russia crisis, the evolution of the startups in various sectors, of course, including defense technology, the creation of intellectual property in defense technology. There's a lot of eager to build IP in defense technologies. And of course, because of the Atmanirbhar Bharat, there is a growing collaboration between global players and Indian companies in defense technologies. I mean, how do you describe the scenario for your company? Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Radhakrishna. Good day to you and your team. First of all, I have to thank you for having this interview for us. The basic genesis is, Mr. Radhakrishna, we all know that India is the third largest spender on military in the world. I think we are inching towards spending nearly $80 billion annually on military, and considering the fact that the geopolitical situation, how fluid it is, it always was, and it's becoming even more fluid now. I think it is essential that we are Atmanirbhar, as the term mentions, independent. So I think each one of the trends that you mentioned deserves a special notice. As I mentioned, I think the Ukraine-Russia war only strengthened the need for Atmanirbharta. While this was professed by our administration almost 7-8 years back, I think the relevance of it is going to be seen now. How important, considering that we are not able to build certain basic necessary fleet for our country, because the engine needs to come either from there or some part needs to come from there. So we don't want in future to have these impediments, right? So I think the call from the government was very essential and right, that we need to be Atmanirbhar, and this was the same trend or the same thought process that came to us when we started this endeavor. And you spoke about IP. One of the key things that we realize as a company is that if we get a JV partner, especially in the arms making, you'll always be limited by where you can supply. Typically, a joint venture partner will not allow you to supply to his markets. He will say, this is a technology that I will give you. You supply to only Indian market, and the rest of the market he enjoys. As a company, myself and Vivek, we very early in our endeavor to start this company, we realized that that is not the way to go. So we spent substantial amount of time in R&D, where we invested in people, we invested in technology, we invested in metallurgy, which was the DNA of our company anyway. To make sure that we develop our own IPs, and I'm proud to say that we have filed for many patents and many design patents and design registrations as well. And all the weapon system that we have built so far, we don't only intend to supply to the Indian market, but we believe that while India is the largest importer of equipment, I think within a few decades we can probably be the largest exporter. So that's the thought process.
Thank you, Mr. Satish. Over to Mr. Vivek Krishnan. I've seen Mr. Vivek, your profile, very impressive background. your expertise in the finance and equities. And I just want to ask you, Mr. Vivek Krishnan, is the closure of the supply of AK-47 rifles to the Indian Army's Para Special Forces Unit marked a turning point for your organization?
Well, when you say a turning point, well, absolutely yes. It definitely marks a major turning point. But it's imperative that I also talk about the fact that the requirement for these AK-47 upgrades is not new. I mean, it's been there for a fairly long time. We still have a sizable number of AK-47s, which are in service with the Army, with the Special Forces, with the paramilitary forces and the likes. It's a reasonably reliable weapon, but at the same time requires substantial upgrades for the nature of warfare that we're likely to see going forward. So our work on this was not new. We started working on this quite some time back. But remember, India is a country where we've had a whole lot of foreign companies trying to play, and create their own market share, create their own rules and the like. So for a domestic manufacturer to come in there and unseat a fairly large Israeli company which had literal monopoly on the supply of some of these components stroke upgrades in India, it wasn't an easy task. We appreciate a competition very clearly. We know what a competition is. We try as much as possible to make sure that there is a differentiator vis-a-vis what a competition offers. And I think we've been successful in large measure on that. Our success here was not about purely offering a product and getting the Army to buy it. It was about offering a product that would be a game changer relative to what was being offered, make sure that the product is manufactured and designed in India, and ensure that the Army going forward at no point in time will ever have to go with a begging ball or face exorbitant prices when it comes to buying some of these products from any OEM, foreign most likely. And so from our side, it marks a turning point because it's vindication of the fact that we create good products and designs. From the government of the Army side, it is vindication of the fact that if there are OEMs that are willing to put skin in the game, the Army and the Ministry of Defense will take a positive view and ensure that they are promoted. But the most important thing is this: value and the differentiator needs to be there. And I think that is what we did this time.
Thank you, Mr. Vivek. My next question to Mr. Satish. Of course, we know that as part of your strategy to diversify into business, your parent company, the biggest Indian manufacturer of the springs, has created the subsidiary SSS Defence. But why defense? It's not easy. It's so easy to get into defense technology and sell it to India. But looking at competition from Brazil country, companies from Israel and other manufacturing leaders from abroad, when did you think, I can make a difference in defense technology? What do you say?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Radhakrishna. I think the answer is actually fairly simple. As you know, we've been manufacturing springs for over 70 years, almost nearly 7 decades. We've been manufacturing and supplying to various sectors. And one of the sectors we also supplied to was defense sector. As you know, a typical gun or a weapon, let's take an assault rifle, would have anywhere between 16 to 25 different types of springs. If you take the weapon with a trigger has a spring. So like various we've been manufacturing and supplying to ordnance factories for a long time. And as a company, I've had experience supplying to these weapons, having troubles. We've done many times R&D on the weapons to make sure that the right amount of force is induced in the component, in the springs, to give the right results in the weapon. So likewise, even with the ammunition, we make a lot of flat parts which is used in the belting of the ammunition, right? So we've been engaged with ordnance factories for over 30 years. So there was some form of a knowledge that we had in this space. And of course, as a company, we identified this as a sunrise sector. Finally, after nearly 7 decades, the sector opened up for private players to play. I think, as a country, when we can send rockets and satellites to this the space. To be honest, making weapons is not that technologically superior as what our scientists have already been able to do. And we've always had this startup culture in our country, right? With the youth wanting to do new things. I'm not saying I'm a youth, but the point is we thought, why can't we do this? And we identified this as a sunrise sector and we went after it. That's how this whole thing came into being. And as I was mentioning earlier, Radhakrishna, I really believe that from being the largest importer, we will be the largest exporter. I think we have the capability in our country to do this. So, and we wanted to be part of this growth story.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Satish. Over to Mr. Vivek. I mean, industry observers predict that, the success of homegrown technology will spur more startups and established original equipment manufacturers to venture into area. As on today, we may be importing, but definitely tomorrow we'll export in a big way. Your views on the Mr. Vivek?
I kind of tend to be a very optimistic person on this. I believe that the future is going to be very exciting. I don't think Satish and us, all of us as a team, would have ventured into the space if we were not optimistic in this regard. Where I believe that we as a country for such a long time have languished when it comes to making of weapon systems is the fact that there is a certain mindset which keeps reinforcing a view that there are other countries which have spent not decades but centuries trying to perfect weapons. And here we have so much of catching up to do. Is it possible to do all of that catching up in the course of something less than a decade? So that kind of a mind space is the reason why we don't end up doing original design, because there is a feeling that this is going to be very difficult. It's going to be a mammoth task for us to do. The answer to that particular doubt can only be in the form of actual investment in R&D to figure out as to whether you can really do it. There's a very nice quote which I keep talking about, which is that you should never be scared of burning bridges if you know how to make those bridges yourself, right? And in the geopolitical situation that we are in, one should definitely expect that the kind of support that we will get from foreign companies or technology partners, whatever be that area, is at best going to be tied to a quid pro quo. I give you something and then you give me something. That time when we could have expected unconditional support is gone. We're kind of moving towards a very different world. So in that sense, the only way we can actually spur innovation is by putting in skin in the game, right? Now, when it comes to startups, there are a lot of people who are doing work, and I find that very exciting thing in itself, not just in the area that we are in, but also in other areas. But where startups, I seriously think, need to up their ante is in terms of thinking not just for the next 2 years or thinking in terms of procurement or what the army will buy, but thinking in terms of how do I create those products which the army would be forced to buy because of the nature of warfare, because of the nature of conflict that we will be seeing in the course of the next few years. So we kind of always catching up while the rest of the world does not. I mean, we kind of catch up because we see the Azerbaijan-Armenia conflict, and now suddenly we want to kind of develop something in the area of drones. But look at Turkey. Turkey did not. Turkey actually supplied those drones, the TB2s and the Bayraktars, which were used in the conflict. I think that mindset is what we need to have in the form of Indian startups. We're trying to do some of that. Needless to say, it does take effort. It does take a lot of vision and strategic thought. But I think I'm starting to see a lot of positive happening in that regard. I mean, the youngsters are a different breed altogether. It's fun to actually see that kind of an attitude that says we'll figure out how to do it as we go along. But let's kind of aim for the stars.
Thank you, Mr. Vivek. Over to Mr. Satish. Satish, I know that as a chief mentor of SSS Defence, you essayed a stellar role in the vision and direction of the firm that opened new vistas for the organization. Defense cooperation is an important element of the strategic partnership between the countries and suppliers of the companies. I mean, We hear that government of Brazil has a plan of action for its partnership with India, in which defense and security are the central components. We hear that CBC Brazil, the world largest, second largest ammunition manufacturer, is already in India and working with your organization. I want to ask you two questions. How important are such collaborations in the business? One. Two is, when we are talking about IP, is there any conflict of interest because we are collaborated, but still we are working in the IP? Over to you, sir.
Thank you again for the question, Radhakrishna. So I'll answer both your questions. I think the important thing here is to acknowledge and recognize where to be independent and where to have a partner. I agree with you and endorse with you, and that's the way to go. It's just not us. There are many companies in the defense sector who have collaborated with various companies across the globe, at least India-friendly countries, I would call. We decided to go with CBC as a joint venture partner for the making of ammunition because we acknowledge that when we can make the best class weapons in the world, unless and until it is supported by best class ammunition as well, it does not work as a system. You can have a great gun, but if you don't have a great bullet, it won't fire. Or vice versa for that matter. You can have a great bullet, but bad gun, it won't work. So we realized that we need quality weapons and quality ammunition as well. So it was in this endeavor that we were looking for joint venture partners, and we were very fortunate that we were able to stitch up this alliance with CBC, who's, as you said, second largest ammunition maker in the world with global presence. They've supplied all over the world. Another reason why we also decided on CBC is because they have been supplying to our Indian Army for a long time. Plus, one of the discussions that we've had with this partner is that since they're already a global supplier, the kind of arrangement that we have is in this part of the world, this JV will be making and exporting to the countries, India-friendly countries. I would consider like it's Philippines or Malaysia. Of course, all these needs to be approved by the government of India as to whom we can sell and whom we cannot. But these are markets that we can serve from India. So this would also benefit us as a country because the endeavor is to also export. So that is the first question. As far as this is concerned, there is absolutely no conflict of interest in any way. Anything with regards to ammunition space, we work together with our partner. In fact, we have working in such a way that some of the weapon system that we have developed, we will be exporting to Brazil so that they can sell in their market. So I think both our interests are aligned in such a way. We get technology from them and we get the necessary equipment and necessary support from them to supply not only to Indian market, but markets around us. And they will do exactly the other way around. They will buy weapons system from us and they are intending to supply our India-made products in their markets. So Brazil also has a lot of requirements for their local law enforcement agencies. So we are intending to supply arms to them. So it is going to be a mutually beneficial, not a conflict of interest in any form.
Thank you, Mr. Satish. Over to Mr. Vivek. Vivek, of course, your organization was inculcated with a startup mindset and prioritized homegrown R&D, compliance with the global standards, agility in addressing customer requirements. Just want to understand, you are a chief executive officer of the organization. What has been your experience so far dealing with the, let's say, Atmanirbharta in defense?
I think things have changed over the course of time. Back in 2016, when Satish and me used to make the rounds of the bureaucracy, the bureaucrats were very, very happy to see some of us actually wanting to do something in this space. There was a little bit of doubt that a company which is trying to do something of its own would be able to succeed. But I guess over the course of that 2-year timeline between 2016 and 2018, the shift was very palpable. It was very clear that the government would now start moving towards not just making in India, but also making in India for the world. So 2020 DefExpo, in fact, actually was talking about making in India for the world. That shift happened between 2016 and 2020. Since 2020, we've only seen the shift happening in one way, which is try to make sure that Indian industry gets what it needs so that it's able to compete well in India and also compete well outside of India. So the defense attaches were actually brought into play an important role as far as canvassing interest for Indian products outside markets concerned. So you can see the very first successes with the BrahMos in Philippines and hopefully in other markets as well. I see that that shift is going to be very, it's going to be a long-lasting shift. I also believe that this is irreversible. It is irreversible because of the fact that no country in this world has ever approached self-reliance and come back to status quo. So I'm fairly sure about the fact that the move towards Atmanirbhar is long term. I'm also very sure about the fact that the government's role in this is now starting to be more and more important, and it's coming out in the right way, especially when it comes to international markets. In fact, one of the very first countries that we were supported for an ammunition contract was the government of Nepal, where the government support countries actually played an important role for us to participate in and win a contract for supply of ammunition.
Vivek, one supplement question. Why don't you introduce your organization, the number of employees that you have, the facilities you have, ammunition manufacturing units you have in maybe Karnataka and elsewhere, and core strengths of the organization to our audience?
Well, so SSS Defence essentially has two major platforms. One is the manufacturing of small arms. The other one is the manufacturing of ammunition. So our small arms manufacturing unit is based in Bengaluru. We will be the only private sector company in India which has everything from research and development to manufacturing to proof testing in the same facility. So we'll have probably the only underground proof test range in this country with state-of-the-art ballistic instrumentation to undertake testing of everything from a small handgun all the way up to a 30 mm cannon. That's very important for us because being a self-driven, design-based company, we need to certify all of the weapons which come out of our units. We also work very differently. It's not like the ordnance factory model where everything happens in the same umbrella. We work very closely with a whole bunch of vendors. We created the ecosystem in the course in the last 3 to 4 years. We have a team of designers, engineers, testers, trial specialists, all of whom actually work fairly close with each other. Our engineering team is fairly cross-disciplinary. So you have people from mechanical, metallurgy. We've got industrial designers, all of them actually working under the same umbrella. We have interns who keep coming in and going out. So that helps us to kind of bring in new ideas at the same time. As far as ammunition is concerned, that's a very different kind of a business. So we having our ammunition facility coming up in Anandpur, just about an hour and a half from Bangalore airport. This is going to be very similar to what CBC has as a global standard manufacturing unit back in Brazil, the Czech Republic, and the likes. Initially, we would be starting off with 2 major lines for manufacturing of small caliber ammunition, the 5.56 9x19, and thereafter moving on to the 7.62 51 calibers as well. Again, this would be a unit which would have its own standalone internal proof test facility because without proof test, you really can't get your ammunition out into the hands of the forces. Both of these facilities have substantial capacity for expansion. So we're looking at expansion in the course of 2 phases for the ammunition manufacturing facility between now and 2030, whilst our small arms facility has already gone through the first phase and is now already moving into the second phase where we're looking at a state-of-the-art chrome plating line for barrels and likes, which will again be one of the only ones in the private sector, possibly the only ones in this region as well, to look at the kind of modern barrel plating infrastructure that is required. Something that we've really treasured a lot is the kind of culture that we have. Satish will definitely comment on that. We've had a very nimble culture. People are free to air their views, come out with ideas. We will test those ideas. Some of those things work, some of those things don't work. But at the same time, we've okayed with failures. We accept failures substantially. That's one of the reasons why most of our systems have actually seen a rather quick turnaround when it comes to failure. But yeah, failure is part and parcel of the job if you are an OEM, and we've accepted that fairly well.
Thank you. Thanks, Vivek. Over to Mr. Satish. I mean, so far you are in a small arms and ammunition sector. Do you see progressing from small arms ammunition sector to UAVs or a technology-driven, software-driven, let's say, defense products and solutions catering to the India's needs or global needs? Any plans in pipeline for? That's one question. Second is in terms of collaboration. Are you looking at CBC Brazil type similar collaborations with other countries?
So, as you know, Mr. Radhakrishna, opportunities in this sector is quite a lot. And the kind of the projects that we have taken, actually, it has consumed quite a lot of our bandwidth, to be honest. And as Vivek said, especially in the arms side, for us competing with companies who have had 300 years of experience in manufacturing this, and we are just 7-year-old. So we had to expedite all these learnings. And I'm proud to say my team, though we have had so many failures, we've successfully able to launch almost 7 different platforms. Some of them are in final stages, but most of them are already done. So yes, we have consumed a lot of bandwidth, and we are here. On the opportunities, we are in various discussions with our army establishments at the training level, at the UAV level. There are so many different areas where we are actually actively engaged. Now, maybe I would be preempting to talk about it at this point in time because many of them are of strategic importance to our country as well. But long story short and simple answer to your question is yes, we are mulling on a lot of opportunities that are knocking at our doorstep. We just have to fructify. Once again, the second part of the question was about like CBC. Yes, again on that front, several opportunities are again emerging from various countries for various products as well. Again, maybe I would be preempting this, but we are very actively engaged with some of the European companies, some even a couple of projects with Russia as well. So a lot of opportunities are lingering, but maybe we'll have another time when we can discuss when many of these projects are fructified.
Thank you, Satish. My last question to Mr. Vivek. I mean, hope you are holding your pipeline is strong. Can you able to share some of your ongoing orders?
Well, I'll give you a broad-based idea. Definitely can't be talking about names and the likes. The Indian Army's requirement for snipers is going to be coming out in the course of the next few months. As the only Indian company to have developed the intellectual property for some of the calibers and the long-range snipers which are required by the Indian Army, we hope to have a fairly good chance, especially because of the fact that the requirement most likely will be for it to be manufactured from India. Another point is that whilst everyone lays emphasis on the Indian Army, we also understand that we have a fairly large paramilitary force and a very, very important police force in India, which also requires modernization. And needless to say, they will actually have to do the modernization in the course of the next several years. So that is again a target area for us. We've been doing trials with a host of paramilitary forces as well. In some cases, we continue to go with what we have as weapons. In some cases, we've even tried out instances where we experiment with the kind of weapons that our special forces, for example, would like to use in the coming years. Bandwidth is probably the most important thing for us right now. Some of these projects do take time. Some of these projects require dedicated focus of our people. Hopefully, the next 1 year should see us closing actual contracts for snipers and assault rifles with the Indian paramilitary forces, the Army and state police forces. Probably can't give names right now, but for sure, we are in discussions. We've completed trials as well and successful ones at that.
Thank you, Mr. Vivek. This last question. Bangalore is IT hub, biotech hub, startup hub, innovation hub. Now the new name is coming from the Karnataka government is the Unicorn Hub also. How do you describe your institution being based in Bangalore? You are giving defense technology to the Indian Army and of course trying to look at a global market as well. Can we see Bangalore, some kind of a impact of defense on Bangalore too?
I will take this question for the at least for the first part, and I'll have Vivek answer if he wants to add points. But what you said is absolutely right. Us being in Bangalore is a huge advantage, Mr. Radhakrishna. I think the culture of innovation has always been there. That's been part of our system. We have fantastic institutes. We have great engineers. Anybody who wants to aspire to have something innovative done, for some reason ends up in Bangalore. Maybe because we have great weather, but apart from that, we have great food and everything. But honestly speaking, we have been benefited as an SSS Defence startup to have started in Bangalore because we are able to attract multivarious talents. So certainly, I believe that this will continue, especially on the defense side, because it's a new field. What IT did to us about maybe 20 years back, that kind of revolution in the defense side, Bangalore has the potential to bring into the nation. I certainly believe that. We are not the only company who have started in this space in Bangalore. There are so many people in Bangalore doing wonderful job. All young companies, run by the early 30s, early 40s, who are doing some amazing jobs. On the UA side, on the scope side, on many areas. Software side, simulation side, they're doing some amazing jobs. So yes, I certainly think that Bangalore will be propelled to the next level of revolution through defense in the next decade or so.
Mr. Satish, Machani and Mr. Krishnan, thank you very much for talking to ET government and sharing deep insights of the organization and ongoing projects and future trends with the ET. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much for having us. Good day.